All right, so let's go to OpenShift, and the it's an email that we signed in with for this course, and we let's see what we have here. Wait. Here we go. Okay, so we have built two applications. Let's see what the IDE. What was the IDE? When you don't use the application for quite a while, the server goes into idle mode, right? So when you try to access it, it might take a couple of seconds to restart the next time you revisit it. Okay. Again, this is a free version that allows you to do prototyping and test things out. Oops. Maybe the server's still not up. Let me see the other one. What was this? This was also idle. It's taking a while. All right. Come on. All right. So this was a test application. I guess we were playing around with some arrays on the server. We can always get the code for this if we do a git clone, right? We just copy that. We come locally, and let's make a directory for OpenShift. And in here we'll do make. And from here, we're going to do a git clone, and then paste that. That's a test 1, 2, 3. Oops, already exists. Really? Oh, okay. Oh, it must be this one then. Test 1, 2, 3. Let's go to test 1, 2, 3. It must be this one, right? So let's run it locally, see what's going on. Or let me open it up with Visual Studio. See, let's open the website, and it was test 1, 2, 3 on C. Actually, it's under mine, right? Under documents. Where is it? Under Jose. Users. Where's users? Hello, users. There we go. Test 1, 2, 3. Let me open that up. And here was a very simple server, right? It just returned an array. Okay, so let's quickly review what we did on Thursday, being able to set up this to work with MongoDB, right? So this is only running. It's not running MongoDB at all, right? Let's run it locally. Notice that it does have the configuration so that it can run in both places, right? It can run locally on port 3000, listening to localhost, or it can run remotely on OpenShift, right? Using this port and that IP address. Yes. Remember we did that on Tuesday, correct? Right. So let's. What we want to be able to do now is be able to have this working with MongoDB locally on our system. Plus, be able to use the remote database that is also can be hosted on OpenShift. Okay, let's review MongoDB locally. For this, we're going to use Mongoose. If you remember, we're going to use the Mongoose plugin or a module, the Node.js module, so that we can have an API to connect to MongoDB. Right? So first, we need to install the plugin, the module. Let's see if it's already there. Notice that locally, we don't even have Express. I believe if we try to run this, probably this won't even work locally. Yeah. Notice that it doesn't even have Express. Okay. We need to install that locally. We have it installed remotely on the remote server, but we don't have it locally. So To install it locally, we're going to install, just install. What's going to do is that install is just going to open up the package JSON. It's going to read it. It's going to look to see what does this project depend on, and it only depends on Express. So it's going to read it, and it's going to say, okay, well, let me install Express. Right? So npm install. It reads it, and it installs Express locally. If we look at the node modules, notice that Express is now installed. If I try to run the server now locally, it should work. So node server.js. Notice that it doesn't complain anymore about not finding Express. Yes. So this should work locally as well. Listening at port 3000. So localhost 3000. Okay, so it retrieves the same thing as the remote one, right? The remote one also returns the same exact thing, right? Same exact thing. All right. All right. So let's get this working with a local database, right? For that, if you remember, we needed to use the Mongoose module, and Node.js module, so that we can interact with the database, right? So to do that, we're going to install the Mongoose module. We're going to do npm install Mongoose. We did this on Tuesday, remember? And save. We're gonna do -- save so that it records the fact that we depend on this module. It's going to record it on package JSON, right? So that when we upload to the remote server is going to read that package JSON and say, oh, you also depend on Mongoose, right? Not only Express. So let me install Mongoose as well remotely. Okay, so now we're going to install it locally on our local machine, but the -- save is going to update our package JSON. Our package JSON, notice that currently it doesn't say anything about depending on Mongoose, right? But if we do save, it'll go and fetch the library for Mongoose, install it locally, and it will record this fact that we depend on this library in the package JSON. Okay, so notice that it reloads. Let's reload it. There it is. And now it says that we do depend on Mongoose. Yes, so that later on, when I push this to OpenShift, it too will install Mongoose, so that we are synchronized on both locally and on the remote server. All right, so we have Mongoose locally. We can verify that it is installed in the node modules. There it is, Mongoose. Then from within the server, we're gonna require Mongoose to load the library locally. This is somewhat of a review from yesterday, from Tuesday. Where is the? Let's look up the documentation for Mongoose. Mongoose. Yes. Basically what we need is load the library and then just connect. Now this connection that we did on Tuesday, this is a local connection to our local machine. Notice that it connects to localhost. See that? Remember that we did that on Tuesday, right? So that we know that's going to work. Well, first we need to start the server. The server's not even running, right? But remember, one of the things that we did after having a connection, we created a what do we do? We created a local schema, right? Remember we created a schema? All right, so let's create a schema. Let's say we'll do var. Let's create. I think we were creating like websites and pages and whatnot. Remember that, right? So let's create a. Let's see. What do we want to create? Let's create a website. My website is made up of many pages, right? So let's create a website schema, and this is going to be a new Mongoose schema. And what is a website made out of? Let's see. Let's keep it simple. It's just it's a name, it's a string, and it has the date that the website was created. It's going to be a date. If you remember, we can give it the type as follows. We can do that. And we also can give it a default value, right? So default might be date.now. Okay. Once we have the schema, we can create a model out of it. We can say var website model, and we can say mongoose dot model, and we'll call it the same thing, website model from the schema, website schema. Now that we have the model, we can now instantiate a model and then save it to the database, right? So let's do that. Let's create a website. So let's we'll do var new a website one. It'll be new website model with the following data. For the name, we're going to give it website one. And we're not going to give it the time the data was created because it already has a default, right? So it's going to pick out the current date as a default for created. Once we have that instantiated, we can then save it to the database. We can just say website one.save. That's going to do an insert into the database. Okay, right? Before we do that, let's start the server. We never started Mongoose. Let's create a new command line from where we can start MongoDB. So MongoDB. Okay. Oh, MongoD. Sorry, MongoD. There it is. MongoD has started. I'm going to leave that alone for a second, and I'm going to start the command line tool just so that I can see that the records are being inserted. I'm going to say Mongo, and we are going to connect to the database test. So I think we're already connected to test. So we can show the DBs. I'm going to use test. And we're going to show collections. Let's see if there's anything there. There's nothing there, right? So this test is going to insert a website, a record, a collection into that schema, into a test schema. All right, let's see if that's true. Let's start our server, and hopefully it's running. It should have already inserted. Let's see if it's true. Show collections. Yes, indeed, it created a new collection called website modes. Really? Did I misspell it? Yes, I did. I misspelled it. Right? It says I spelled it as website mode. I think what I wanted to do is website model, right? Actually, this is what Mongoose uses to base the name out of the collection from that. So maybe a better name might be website. Maybe that's a better name. Let me run that again. Let's see the new collection. Notice now we have two collections. One is website modes from the one that I misspelled earlier, and now websites. Basically, it takes the name that I give it here, it makes it all lowercase, and it pluralizes it, right? Now, I don't like collections that have plural names, just because some words have plural names, some don't. You can't guarantee exactly what the plural name is actually going to be. You have to remember that sometimes it's singular, sometimes it's plural. It's a pain. So I like to just go with the singular version. You can override the default. The default is to pluralize, right? But you can override that and say that you can explicitly tell it what the name of the actual collection you want to use, right? And I'm going to say I want to use the singular, right, of the collection, right? So I'm going to restart the server. Restart, and I'm going to do this again. Now we have three. We have the singular, the one I really want, right? And we have the other two that I'm just going to drop. I'm going to say website modes. db.website-modes.drop. We're going to drop that, and we're also going to drop the plural websites. We're going to drop that, And now we're only left with just that website collection. Yes? With the data that we put in there, we inserted a single record that has the website 1, right? It has the data here, right, that we inserted. There it is, website 1. Everybody good? Everybody still with me? All right. Now, yeah, we were playing with developers and whatnot, right? Okay, let's remove that. Let's remove that. Okay, so we really want to, instead of creating websites, just when the server starts up, really what we want to be able to do is, create them on demand, right? Create them when we hit a particular link, right, or a particular URL, right? So, for instance, we might want to do, for instance, something like I don't know, something like app.get, right, and API slash website, right? And give it the name of a website, right? So, for instance, the name, right? And if I give it the name of the if what I might want to do here is maybe create the website, right? So now instead of creating websites just when the server starts, I'll do it on demand based on a URL, right? If the URL is API slash website slash something, right, it'll create a website for that name, right? And we'll parse out the name from the requests, right? Instead of being hard-coded, we can parse it out from the request in the params, name, right? These two match, that matches that. And then it just saves it. Okay? All right, let's try that. Let's stop the server. Let's restart it. All right, it should not have created any websites. We should still just have that one that we created earlier, right? But now we have a URL for creating websites on demand, right? We can say, we can go to localhost, right? We can say, we can use that URL. I think it was API slash what? Website? Website. And we give it a name, right? New website. Presumably that created the site. Let's go here and let's do a find. Yes, and we have it right there, new website. Notice that our server our client is still like waiting. See that? It's waiting because the server never generated a response. All right, let's go back to the server. Notice that it's saved, right? But it never responded anything, right? So the client is kind of like waiting for the server to respond. So what we're going to do is we are going to respond. If you remember, when save executes, it notifies us that it was successful or not through a function where we provide the error and the document that was inserted. So we could respond maybe with the document. We can say response.send a JSON back with the new document that was generated. Okay, let me restart the server. And okay, notice that the client was waiting, right? The server went down, the server went up again. The server noticed that there was a request pending, right? And it went and actually fulfilled that request, right? That the client was waiting for this request to respond. So it responded. Why is this not? Why is my Zoom not working? Huh. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it returned that site. We can go view all these. I think I called it like 3 times already. I noticed the same name, went new website, new website, new website. They all have different IDs. You see the IDs are different, right? And notice that the creation times are also different. Right, so these are all unique records, right? Even though they have the same name. So this URL, I can give it other values. They'll create it, and we can always fetch them again. And notice that there it is, the new website 1. So we see that we can interact with the database now with a URL, correct? We have exposed our database to a URL driven API. Okay. Not only can we generate data, we can also retrieve data. Notice that I am breaking the REST paradigm, right? The REST paradigm is that if you want to create something, you really should use POST. Yes. We remember we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But there's a quick and dirty example I'm showing you. How you can expose these URLs and interact with the database. We can retrieve all the websites, right? By exposing another URL by saying maybe /API/website and not providing any arguments, right? And this meaning that I want to retrieve all of them, right? I want to retrieve all the websites. If I don't tell you which one, then that means it's all of them, right? I need the request and response. And to retrieve all the websites, we have to go back to the model, and say, okay, get the model, find all of them, and when you have all of them, notify me with either an error or all the sites, right? And if I have all the sites, I'm going to send them back to the client through JSON and send the sites back. Okay. So now I've exposed another URL that allows me to retrieve all instances that are stored. So let's start the server. Now we can go back here. We can just say website, and this is going to return an array of all the records that are stored in the database, right? So there they are, all of them. Okay, everybody good? Everybody okay? All right. Now the problem with this URL is that, again, it's breaking the paradigm of instead using posts to create, right? Also because this doesn't allow me to, for instance, retrieve one single website, right? A single website, because the URL would have to be the same, right? It would have to be the URL plus some ID, and this is going to be confusing to the Express engine, right? The server saying, well, there's two URLs, they're exactly the same pattern. And you might want to do two different things. One is allowing me to create, whereas the other one you want to read a single website, right? To be able to distinguish them, perhaps again breaking the paradigm of REST, you might provide something afterwards, right? That distinguishes these two URLs from one another, right? If you just give me the ID, then I am going to retrieve that one, right? I'm gonna use a website model to retrieve that one. Website. I'm going to do find by ID, right? Where I'm going to provide the ID as an argument from the request params.id. That's an argument, and it's going to retrieve the one site, just one site, and I'm going to send that one site back. Okay, all right. Let me restart the server. And so if I retrieve, that's all the websites. But if I want to retrieve just one website, let's see which one. Let's retrieve this one, the one that has the long name. So it's by ID. So I'm going to provide that as an argument in the URL, and it retrieves that one document. Okay, everybody good? All right. So what we want to be able to do is to see if we can replicate this remotely, right? On OpenShift, right? So this is, we know it's running locally, right? We want to be able to replicate this remotely. Now, the challenge of replicating this remotely is somewhat similar to what we had to do so that the IP addresses in the port, right, were aware of the environment. Yes. So the way we did that is that we had a little some logic here that said, hey, you know what? If you have this, if this is not null, right, that means that you must be running remotely. So take that as the IP address. And if this is not null, then it must be, again, that you're running remotely. So use that as a port. Okay. And we gave alternatives for the local version, right? If these two are null, then instead use these other this other IP address and this other port, right, to run locally. Yes. So we have to do something similar for this to work remotely. Okay. So for this to work remotely, we need to know what this is remotely. Right? We know that locally, this is the URL, right? This is the connection string for the local database. Yes. We need to know what the URL, what the connection string is for the remote database. Okay. And that is all, again, all those variables are inside of process.env. Okay, all that is in process.env. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to print out all the environment variables, the remote environment variables. Okay, and see which one it is that has that particular URL. Okay, it will be very evident once we see it. Okay, to do that, I am going to disable the Mongoose Connect, right? Just because that's going to fail in the remote server, right? It's going to try and connect to that database, right? It's not going to find it. It's going to fail, and my server is not going to, it's just going to be unavailable, right? So I'm gonna for just for a second, I am going to disable that. I don't want you to connect to any database for now, right? And this should still work, right? I still have the schema. I have all this. Nothing will happen unless I try to hit this URLs, right? Which I'm not going to do. Okay, because I know it'll fail because there was no connection. We're not connected to the database, and none of that works, right? So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do, I'm going to create an additional URL that will allow me to print out this environment variable so I can see it. Okay, all right. Once I do this, I should turn it off right away, because not only is it going to expose that URL, it's going to expose a whole bunch of things, right? That are very, very private to my environment, right? It's going to expose the database username, the password, all sorts of things, right? That are only available within the server, within the environment. Okay, right? So I'm going to turn it on just for a second, just to show you all the environment variables. I'm going to create a little app.get, right, and a little URL that says process, just process. Okay, and for that, I want to print the environment variables, right? Process. So I'm going to call it process, and what this is going to do is going to do function request response, and it's just going to send back to me as a JSON object. It's going to respond with this process environment, the environment variables for my particular environment. Yes, all right. Let's try that locally. Let's stop the server. Let's restart it, and let me hit it with just process. Okay, so all these are the local environment variables, right? We have where my the path environment variable, the process architecture. It's an AMD 64. It's an Intel family. There's a whole bunch of things that are local environment variables. Yes, that are passed to my server. Okay, it has access to all this. Right, it knows what the temp directory is, the user domain, all sorts of things. Right, my user profile, all sorts of things that are private to my machine. Okay, so I want to see what this is in my remote machine. Okay, so let's push this to my remote machine and do the same thing. One of the environment variables that we would like to look at is what is the connection string to the database. Okay, actually, do we even have a database for this? I don't believe so. Maybe not. Right, let's add a database to our OpenShift. Let's see. Let's go back to OpenShift. Where's OpenShift? I hope we're still logged in. We're not. Oh, we are. Okay. So this is the application we're using, right? And notice that one of the options that we have is that we can add MongoDB. Okay. It says, okay, let's add MongoDB. It says, are you sure? Yes. Okay, let's add it. This is going to take a little while. While that is going, let's push our changes. Git status. Let's see what changes here. Okay, so it says that we modify package JSON. We can look at the differences. Let's see. We added Mongoose. Yes, indeed, that's what we did. In the server, what do? We added also Mongoose. We removed the developers. We added a couple of URL, right? We added the process. Yeah, looks all right. Looks correct. Also, we added Express and Mongoose, right? We installed that locally, yes, right? But we don't want to install that. We don't want to push these libraries to the remote server, right? Instead, the server is going to read the package JSON and do its own installation, right, out of those dependencies. Yes. So we want to tell Git, to please ignore these files, right? Remember how we did that? We created a Git ignore. Remember that we did that on was it Tuesday or I think it was last week, right? We created a Git ignore. So let's do a cat dot git ignore. Oh wait, that's Unix. Let's see if this works. Nope. Doesn't work. All right, so touch. Maybe. Git ignore. Nope. All right, I'll create a new file. I'll create a new file here, and I'll call it. Oh wait, we do have git ignore. Oh, it's empty. Okay, let's put here just node modules. Okay, so we're telling Git ignore that directory. Okay, because in there's a whole bunch of libraries that I don't want you to follow those libraries, right? If we do get status again, notice that it no longer tells me that there's new things in that directory. It's ignoring them, right? So then we can just push these things. We can say git commit am test MongoDB, and we're going to push that git push. While that pushes, we'll come back to this and says, oh, look at that. Okay, so MongoDB has been added to our server, right? And it tells us that the username, password, and whatnot, right? Notice that the database name is test123. So let's copy this. Let's copy this information, and let's put it somewhere here so that we don't forget. We'll put it inside the server, perhaps down below in a comment. Okay, we'll leave it in a comment. Let's see if it's done pushing. Oh, notice that it read notice that installing Mongoose remotely. See that? It's installing it remotely because it opened up our package JSON. It realized that we had included a dependency on Mongoose, and it went and actually installed Mongoose remotely. Okay, right? But we're not yet using it remotely. We're not yet looking at it. We just want to go here, right? Okay, and we remember that we had added a process URL. Yes, remember we added a process URL locally. It works locally, and locally tells me all these things, right? But the interesting thing is what the remote one's going to tell me. Okay, there it is. All right, so it tells me some of the things that I already know, right? For instance, I already know that there is a remote environment variable called OpenShift NodeJS IP, right? If I look for that, there it is. The remote IP address is 127.10.138.129. That's the remote IP address. I can look at the port number also, right? I can search for this. There it is. All right, so it is listed at 8080. Okay. But one of the things we want to do is look at environment variables for MongoDB. What are we looking for? We're looking for this URL, okay? This URL, but for the remote database. Okay. Let's look for that. So if we do look for MongoDB, look at that. It exposes the database password. It exposes a whole bunch of things, right? The host, that's the IP address that the database is listening at. The port that it's listening at. The URL, that's what I want. This is what we need. This is the URL to our database, okay? And we're going to copy, well, actually, we just need this. We need the name of that environment variable, right? If If it's available, then it must be that we are running remotely. If it's not available, like over here, notice that it's here, it's not available. See that? It's not found. And so locally, that environment variable doesn't exist, right? So we can tell whether we're running remotely or locally, right? So what are we going to do? So locally, what we're going to do is we're going to compute. Instead of this being a hard-coded URL, right, the connection string, we're going to calculate it. We're going to say the connection string is going to be process env dot, that's the URL, right? If it is available, yes, if it's available. Otherwise, I'm going to use the local one. Yes, that makes sense, right? And then here, I'm going to use the connection string. That's a variable, which is dynamically calculated on the fly, right? And it will use one or the other. Everybody good? Everybody still with me? So let's see if this still works locally, right? It should work just the same locally. Let's start the server. Node server. Let's see. So locally, this is locally, and we had what? We had API website that returns all the websites. So it still works locally. We want to see if it works remotely. All right. Let's commit and push our changes. So git status, what has changed? Let's see. Only the server has changed. So let me see the differences. What did I do? Okay, I added. Okay, I took out that line. I added connection string variable. I added Mongoose connect, and I have down below some stuff. Now, note this is all. Actually, I shouldn't put this here. I shouldn't put my username and password here, because if I ever want to make this file available for free, in GitHub, for you guys to look at it, I would be making my username and password visible, right? So I'm gonna quit here. I'm going to come here and I'm going to remove this from here. Okay, and I'm going to put it, I don't know, elsewhere. I'll put it anyway. That information can be retrieved later. Okay, I'll show you how to retrieve it anyway. So let's look at the diff now again. So this is that, yeah. Okay, that's the only thing we changed, right? Just the connection string is now the calculated connection string. All right. So let's commit this. Commit git commit am make calculate connection string, and let's push. Git push. Okay. So that's going to push. This should go a little faster because it already installed Mongoose in the previous push. So it should be already there. And we already tested it that it works locally. Okay, preparing builds, activating, waiting for Mongo, starting Node.js, starting the application, and it says that it was successful. Okay, let's go back here. So this is remotely, remote. And so what was the URL that we were using earlier? API/website, right? Website. And it's empty. It's empty because in the remote database, we've never added a website, right? So let's try adding something. We'll say website, website one, create. Okay, there it is. So presumably it added a website. We can retrieve it. We can say, give me all the website again. Okay, so that's it, right? Let's create a couple more websites. Let's create W2. Let's create W3, right, and W4. We created 4 websites, and then I can list all of them. And here it comes back as an array. So there it is. So we are able, right, to locally insert and query for data and have it also work remotely. Everybody good? Okay. All right. So let's make this a little more interesting. Okay. Now that we know how to have this work locally and remotely. Let's make this a little more interesting. So basically, the only line of interest here, the only 2 lines of interest in this lecture, right, are these 2 lines. These are the only 2 lines of interest in this lecture. Okay, that from last lecture, what we did is that it was a hard-coded URL, right, pointing to a local database. And instead today, what we said is that we're going to calculate that as opposed to hard-coding it. Yes, it'll connect to either remotely or locally, and we can have it work in both places, right? Typically, what you do is you do all your local development. When you feel happy that it's working fine, then you push it. Okay, all right. Let's see. Let's fix something, right? So this create really is bothering me. Okay, it should not use a get to create data. Yes, it should instead do what? It should use a post instead. Correct? To do a post, we need to parse a body, and we need to install a body parser and all that. Remember that? Yes. So let's wait on that just for a second, right? Before we do that, let's create a little Angular application that can read data from the database, so that it's exposed from the database. So this is Angular talking to the server, talking to the database, right? So now we're gonna have the mean stack, right? Finally, we're gonna have the mean stack, right? We're gonna have the A in Angular, right? In mean, sorry, talking to express, the E in mean, right? That is running instead of Node.js, right? The N in mean, which is exposing the data that is in the database MongoDB, right? The M in the mean stack. Make sense? Right? So finally, we'll have the entire full stack. Let's add a couple things here. We'll need in the public. Oh, we had already added the CSS. We had already added the fonts and all the JavaScript. Perfect. And had we started the index? Maybe. Okay. Yeah, we had exposed the developers. Remember that? I guess we had done that. And we have, presumably we have our application is under app. Okay. And so let me put that second. So here, instead, we're gonna do the websites. Yeah. So websites. Okay. So the Angular UI is asking from the server, from the controller, is asking for websites, right? And the controller is going to say, okay, wait, let me go get them. Let me go fetch them from the server, right? And how does it do that? It's going to go to, how did we do it? We use the URL, right? The URL is what? It's API website to retrieve all the websites, right? So there it is. So we're just going to copy that, right? We're going to copy that. And the response, we're going to send it to the URL, to the UI, which is websites. The scope websites is equal to the response. So now we're going to have Angular fetch data from the server and render those sites in the UI, right? So let's try that locally. Let's do index. No, that didn't work. Probably a local server is down. Let's start it again. Node server. Let's reload. Okay, there it is. That's our array, right? That's the array we were hitting earlier. But let's render it a little nicer. Let's render it using a table. That's very easy, right? We just have to say table class table and table striped, and here a table row or table body, which has a table row that grabs data from websites that come in, and we're just going to display the name of the website.name, right? That didn't work. What happened here? Websites. What are you complaining? Refresh. Huh. Network. It is getting the website. It's getting the data. It is getting the data. Why is it not binding? ng repeat equal website in websites. Isn't that what I called it? Websites, yeah. This is what I called it. What's going on? ng repeat, oh, I know. td. Copy. This is td. There we go. All right, that worked. Okay. Yes. Everybody good? So let's do the entire stack. We're going to add here a button to remove, right? So so this is button, as button danger, and I'm going to keep it short. So I'm going to put here times. So that's X, right? So that's an X on the right-hand side. And if I click on that, right, I'm going to say ng click, okay, I'm going to remove and pass along what? I'm going to pass along the ID of the website, right? So the website ID. That's under the ID underscore ID, right? That it's part of the object that comes along. And on the controller, I'm going to receive that event handler. I'm going to say scope.remove is a function that receives the ID. And I'm going to do an alert ID just to make sure that that is working. Let's refresh. And if I click here, notice that's the ID. There it is. You see that? Right? The ID is there. That's the ID. There it is. What are we actually going to do? We're going to send a delete command to the server, providing the ID, right, as part of this. And if it's successful, it'll come back with the websites. If we try this, right, it's going to complain, right? Because the server, there it is, see, complain. The server is not waiting for any deletes, right? The server doesn't know what to do with that delete, right? Because it hasn't been configured, right? The server, if we go in the server only has what? Let's see, it's only listening for a get with this URL pattern, a get with that URL pattern, and a couple of gets, right? That one and that one. It's not waiting for any deletes, right? So it responds to the client as saying that URL doesn't map to anything I know. Actually, let me remove that, right? For security purposes, I'm going to remove that process. So anyway, so let's add the delete, right? Let's tell the server to respond to that delete with a URL, the same URL we have on the client. That is the URL, right? With an ID, right? And this is going to be an argument, an attribute, a parameter that's going to be passed in the path. So we're going to do request response, and we can get the ID, var ID, from the parameters, right? So request dot params dot ID. Now that I have the ID, I can now say website model dot remove and pass it an ID, or remove and pass it an ID. So I can say underscore ID and then the value for the ID. Okay, and it's going to notify me if the removal was successful. It's going to notify me by calling this function and the count. You know, how many records were actually removed for this, and then we can respond back with all the sites. Right here are all the sites. We can then respond with all the sites. Here's a code to fetch all the sites and just respond with it. Notice that I am nesting this. Usually this is considered to be bad practice. Instead, we should be using the deferred or the promises, and we'll cover promises when we come back after the break. So anyway, so here, after we have successfully removed, we're going to fetch all the sites and respond with the remaining sites. Yes? Okay? Right? So okay, so let's see if this works. Let me restart the server. Right, let's see, and let's start removing. I think we have way too many new websites. Let's see if it works. Oops, it didn't work. Let's see what's going on. Delete, reference error, blah, blah, blah. What did the server say? Website mode is not defined. No? Really? Oh, model. Urgh. Try that again. We'll try it again. So we're refresh. Let me remove this. Okay. Keep removing. Okay, it is working, right? It is removing. It is removing. So it's working. Let me go to the actual database and do a query and see. Let's see if I do a find. I only have 2 left, right? Just like the UI says. There's only 2 left. All right. Everybody okay? And I can create, right? I can always create new ones by saying what API website, right? You know, website 1, 2, 3 creates one, or creates another one, 4, right? And we can always go back to our index, and see that it did not work. What happened? What did the server say? Blah, 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 blah. It didn't complain. Huh, why didn't it work? Oh, we forgot to create, right? The create. Yeah, so let's website, and let's create a new one. Website w123/create, right? And let's add another one, w234, and then another one, w345, and then we can go back and view all of them. Here, there they are, right? W123, 234, 345. But we said that we were breaking the RESTful API paradigm, right, of using GET to create data. That's a no-no. Instead, we're going to use POST like we should. For that, we're going to need a form, right? So let's create a form. Let's create a form here as part of the header. So thead. And in here, we're going to do a table row and a table H for an input field of class form control. And this is going to be, I'm going to tie this to the controller through a model. The model, the ng model. I'm going to tie this to the controller, and I'm going to call it site or website. Okay, so the controller, when I click on this button, ph, now here I'm going to put a button, and I'm going to just put a plus here, and so this is going to be class button success for plus for the so it's green. Let me reload that. There it is, right? If I click on the plus sign, what I want to be able to do is notify the controller. Click. I want to notify the controller to add a new site. I'm going to pass website as an argument. Right. So the controller is going to listen in for those events. Scope add through this function, website, and what's going to do is it should generate a post. Yes, and pass the new data that we want to post. So we're going to say http.post and to that URL, which is API/website, right? And we're going to pass website as an argument. And if we're successful, hopefully it'll come back with a list of all the websites. So, right, we'll come back with all the lists of the websites, and we'll notify I'm going to just paste it here. Right. So if the post is successful, it's going to return all the websites, including the new website we just added, and we'll update the UI with that new website. All right. So if we reload this, right, and we look at our console, right, and we start typing something here, and we do a plus, notice that the server is complaining. You see that? The server is complaining. Why? Because there is no post. There is no URL that is waiting for a post, right? Correct? So let's go back to the server and write it. All right, let's go to the server, and just like we added the deletes, we're going to add a post, right? We're going to say app.post. So we are going to listen for a post for the same URL, API website, and function request response. And what should we do? We're going to create a new instance of the model. We're going to say var site is going to be equal new model. New, what is it? What it's called? Website model. Website model. Okay, that's right. Don't we have that already somewhere here in the create? This, right? This is what we need to do, right? This over here. This over here. So I'm going to paste it here. But notice that this was grabbing the name of the parameters from the name of the website from the parameters. What I really want to do is what is use the object that I'm passing as an argument, right? The object that somebody typed at the form and that I'm passing along. Where is that object? Right? Remember that in a post, the data is passed in the body of the HTTP request, right? So we need to parse that out. Right? So to parse it out, it's inside of the request body, right? Remember that we did that a couple weeks ago, right? Once we have the website, we can save it and then come back with what we really want to return is not just one document. We want to retrieve all the documents that, including the one that we just added, right? Okay. All right. So let's see if this works. Let's stop it. Let's restart. Let's go back here and refresh. So we have all these sites, and let's create a bogus one. Let's press plus, right? Okay, this time it didn't complain, and it looks like it added something. Right, it did add something, but you see the data's missing. Right, the data's missing. What's going on? Right, if I add here new site 321, I add. So it looks like something is being added, but something is wrong, right? What could be wrong? What did we forget to do? Well, first of all, let me remove these, right? Because these are kind of bogus. What we forgot to do is that the server doesn't know how to parse the body, right? Doesn't know how to parse the body from the HTTP request. So we need to add an additional library, right? Remember the body parser library, right? We need to add that. So let's go back and do that. Let's go to Express to see how to do that. Express.js. If we go to the API reference and we search for body parser, all right, there it is, right? So we need to add these 3 lines of code here, right? Let's add it right here. I'm going to say, okay, these lines of code, notice that they're using app, but app is being instantiated elsewhere down below. So we need to move this after we instantiate app. Where's app? There it is. It is where we instantiate app. All right, so we loaded body parser and Multer. And these are 2 new libraries that we need to install, right? We don't have them. We never installed them locally. Or did we? Let me see. We can say list the node modules. Yeah, so we only have Express and Mongoose. We need to install body parser and Multer, right? So let's install them. So we say npm, because if we run it, if we run the server now, it's going to complain saying we don't have body parser. I can't find body parser, right? So this line right here is failing, right? Because this is looking for those modules in that directory, node modules, right? It doesn't find it. It complains it's not there. So we need to install it. So let's install it. I'm just going to say npm install body parser. Okay, and I'm going to say save. Now, again, this is going to download body parser and it's going to install it locally, copy it locally, and it's going to update my package JSON. Right, saying that hey, my server depends on that package, right? So that when I push this to OpenShift, OpenShift also will install its own version of body parser. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so all right, there it is. If we list the node modules, notice that body parser is now installed. If I try to run the server now, it's going to complain now about the other one, Malter. So say Malter is not installed. Okay, you just install body parser, but not Malter. So let's install Malter. We're going to say npm install Malter and save. That's downloading and now installing Malter. Let's verify that it's in there. So ls node modules. There it is. Malter has been installed. There it is. Very good. Also, let's make sure that package JSON has been updated accordingly. Package JSON. There it is. And indeed, we notice that the dependencies for body parser and the dependencies for Malter have been added. Okay, so that when we push it, the remote server is also going to install these two packages. So we'll be synchronized. Yes, everybody okay? All right. All right. So now that we install it, we can restart our server. Hopefully, our server now no longer is going to complain. Okay. All right. It's not complaining. I can go back here and refresh this. So let's refresh. And now if we start to add something new, let's say website A. If we add, it still didn't work. What's going on? Invalid JSON. Ooh, okay. Let me see what are we sending over. Let's look at the network to see what we sent over. Let's go to the network. Let me try it again. Let me send. Okay, it complained. We posted. And let me see what we sent over. Payload. Oh, it looks like we just sent text. Looks like we just sent text. And we didn't actually send an object. Let's see why. Let's see in our application. We're sending the website. Okay. We're just sending what? We're sending just a string that you typed, right? We just sent a string that you typed. Instead, what we should do is make this an actual object. Okay. So the object will be website, and the attribute or the property will be name. Okay. And now we're sending what? We're sending the actual object to the event handler, who has an attribute or property called name. All right, so let's try that again. Refresh this. Refresh, and let's clean that up and let's say have here website B. Okay, let's add. Okay, this time it didn't complain. If we look at the what was sent, indeed we did send JSON whose attribute was name with the value website B, right? And hopefully that has been added at the end. There it is. Website B is there, right? And I can send website C, add. And it's being added down below. Okay, so what can we do? We can read all of them. We can delete. We can add new ones. Let's push this to the remote server. See if it works remotely. Yes.
I don't know if it's going to take this out of detail, but where would the services or factors be?
Good question. Let's do that. Right. Let's add that to this. Very good. So let's push this to the remote server. See if we have a baseline. Right. Let's do a git status. See if we have anything new. Okay, so we have a new package JSON, right? That it's telling us about our new dependencies, right? We modified index, we modified our page and the server. Let's do a git commit. Am going to say added post and delete, right? And let's do a git push. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Okay, notice that it's installing those two new modules, right? The body parser and the there it is. Body parser and Malter is being installed, right? And it redeploys the server and it restarts it. Restarts MongoDB, restarts the server. Okay, there it is. Okay. Let me go back and now let's go to remote. Remote, we didn't even have a UI in the remote server, right? Now we should have a UI. If we go to the index, that is our index, right? We have the W1, W2, W3, W4 that we had originally, and we can add a W5. Let's see, add. All right, looks like it's working. Right, there it is, and I can remove. Right, so I can remove and add. All right, yeah. So let's go back. Let's go back and apply some good practices, right? Like one of your colleague students was suggesting here is that it is considered to be bad practice to use these directly, right? To use these HTTP, going out to the server directly here from the controller, right? A better design would be to put all these guys, right? The add, the remove, and all these, right? To put them all in a service, right? That can be reused by anyone. Okay. So instead of putting it here and being tied only to this controller, okay, we can put it in a shared service, right? That can be used by many controllers, right? And each controller could then service different pages, right? Different controllers might, you can have controller A, B, C for pages A, B, C, right? And for any page, you can then access websites through this shared web service, okay? So instead of having it here, we're going to create a separate service that can be shared amongst controllers. All right, so for that, let me open up my app. All right, okay, that is, okay, I am in the app, sorry. Let's create the shared controller, the shared service. I'm going to say app.factory, and in here I'm going to create a website service. Okay, and in here we're going to have function. Right, this is our constructor for the service. I'm going to use $HTTP just like I was using it in the controller. And instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move all these accessors, right? I'm going to move them. I'm going to move them over here. I'm going to move them. I'm going to put them inside functions that can be reused, right? So I'm going to say var, what's this? This is reading all the websites, right? This is reading all the websites. So I'm going to call it find all websites, and this is going to be a function. There it is. Okay. And this function here, instead of, notice that I have to instead of this being a callback over here, right? So that it can be reused from outside. What we're going to do is that we're going to have this function be an argument instead. You give me the argument, I will call that function when I come back. Right. But let's wait for that for a second. Let's see what else. What else do we have? Let's see. We have also this one, the adding, right? The posting. Let's copy that too. Put it here, and we're going to say var create. Right. That's going to be a function that takes as argument the site, right? And it uses the HTTP post. And website is the argument for that. You see that? Okay. What else? What else? Do we have anything else? We have, this is getting all of them. This is adding all of them. And this is removing all of them, right? So let's copy that, the deletion. And we're going to copy it here, and we're going to put it inside of a reusable function, var remove function. It's going to take as argument the ID. I'm going to paste here the delete. Okay, and that ID now is an argument. See that? Okay, everybody okay? All right, and then I'm going to expose all these functions in the return. I'm going to say I'm going to send back an object that has attributes create, which is mapped to the local create function. Okay, I'm going to pass back an attribute find all, which is mapped to the find all function that is local to this service, and I'm going to send back a remove attribute, which is mapped to the remove function locally. Okay. Now that I have this service, right, I can then inject this service into the controller. Instead of using HTTP, I'm going to remove that. Okay. Instead, right, I'm going to, well, I'm not going to remove it yet because it's going to complain. We're going to remove one at a time, right? So here's the web service. Here's the web service, right? So the web service, basically, I'm going to replace the web service. I'm going to replace this with the web service. And replace it. Here's web service, and the function that allows me to get everything is called what? Find all. Yes. Okay. And find all. Notice that the data needs to be passed through a callback, right? So I need to kind of like pass the callback as an argument, right? So that it can notify me with all the websites that are coming back, right? So I can replace this. I can remove this. Okay. But now notice that find all is waiting for a callback as an argument. So let's go back to find all and put that callback as an argument. Use callback, an argument, and it's going to replace this, right? So it's going to call that function, which now instead of being hard coded, it's now an argument. Instead of here was hard coded, right? But instead I'm replacing it with a callback as an argument that I'll pass it. What am I passing? I'm passing this function, which basically says, you know, once you have it, call me and I will update the UI, right? See if we broke it. Let's see if we broke it. Let's refresh. Well, actually, no, the local one, right? Okay, we did break it. Oh no, well, the server's down, right? Let's start the local server. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, it looks like it's working, right? The find all seems to be working, right? Let's replace all the other ones. Let's replace the add, right? It's going to call what? We're going to call website service.create, and it's going to pass as an argument the website, right? And it should pass also along the argument on how it wants to be notified. Function, right? So we're going to remove this. Okay, and the create now, instead of this being hard coded, I'm going to make it an argument. Okay, and I'm going to replace this right here. Okay, so let's see if this works locally. Notice that I'm not restarting the server, right? Because I'm doing all these updates on static pages, right? All these changes are static pages. Let's see if it works. So if we have website C, let's create. Let's refresh. Okay. Let's do website D. Let's add. Okay, looks like it's working, right? And finally, the last one that we're going to replace is the remove. So remove, this stays, right? Because that event handler is what ties the UI to the controller, right? And the website service is what ties the controller, right, to a centralized, reusable component, right, that can access websites from anywhere, right? Anywhere where I inject this website service has access to talk to the server, right? Instead of living hard-coded inside of this controller, which is not reusable, right? Now it's in a central place which I can inject anywhere. Just like scope can be injected in any controller, you know, $HTTP can be injected into any controller. Same thing. Now website service can also be injected into any controller. So if you have several pages, right, each one with its own controller, they can all use website service as opposed to having to recode this again in those controllers. Make sense? Yes? Right. So yeah, so let's do the final to remove. So this is going to use website, website, where I can't spell, website service dot remove, that takes as argument what? The ID. And it's going to take as argument the function, right? So that it can right, remove this. It's going to take that as an argument, right? So the remove method here is going to take not only the ID, but now instead of having this hard coded, it's going to have a callback argument. Okay. And so let's refresh this. Refresh, so it reloads. And let's see if I can remove. Yeah, I can remove. So it works. Okay, everybody okay? Did I lose anyone? What was that? Was that what you were asking about using web services? I'm sorry, the service. Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, let's talk about organizing the code a little bit. Okay. So, for instance, one way to organize your code. Notice that all our code for our application lives in this one file. Right, the control lives here, the service lives here. Okay, a better way to organize your code is to one way to organize it is either by type of what do you have implemented in your file. So, for instance, you might have many controllers, yes, and so you have each controller defined in its own file, right? Well, I'm sorry. Obviously, you're going to do that, right? You're going to have each controller defined in its own file. Each server is defined in its own file, yes? But then you can either define it as follows, where you put all your services here, right? So you can have many services here, maybe all your controllers here, right? Okay, you could do that. That's one way to organize it, organize your code. Another way to organize it is by feature. So, for instance, you can have features, and then you can have maybe the feature is I'm managing websites. That's the feature, right? So everything that has to do with that feature, put it in there, right? You're gonna have a controller, right, for interacting with feature with sites. You're gonna have a service to interact with sites. You're gonna have a page or partial for that also in there. So let's reorder this a little bit. And in here we're gonna a feature is the websites, right? The websites in here. And in here I'm gonna create a controller in here. I'm gonna say I'm gonna have a JavaScript. I'm gonna put the service here. I'm gonna put the service here. So this is website service. Is that what I called it? Wait. Website service. I'm gonna create here. Add a JavaScript. I'll call it that. All right, so it's empty. I'm gonna copy this factory. I'm gonna copy it in there, because you can imagine that in your project you're gonna have lots of services, lots of controllers, right? And this page, this file here could get really big, right? You want to start splitting it out, right, into by feature. So let me take that out of here. I'm gonna remove it from there. I'm gonna move it into its own file. I'm gonna move it into its own file. Oh wait, I think I didn't. Sorry, I forgot the first line. All right, so I'm gonna cut and I'm gonna paste it in its own file. Okay, so now in my index page, I'm gonna have to load that index page, right? And that JavaScript. I'm gonna load it. Where is it? I think it's under features, websites, web service. Yes, so it's loaded. Also the controller, I'm going to move the controller also out of there. Okay, the controller is here. Where is it? There it is. Here's my controller. No, not the developer controller. Is that what I called it? Oh, that's from the previous class. We were doing a developer controller. That's a very bad name, right? So I'm going to call it website controller, or website controller. And I guess I need to change the name here as well, right? It's website controller. Right? So I'm going to move this to its own file. I'm going to just cut it out of here. Out of here. Oh, I missed it. I missed the first line. Cut it out of here, and I'm going to create a new file under this this particular feature. I'm going to say add new JavaScript. I'm going to call it website controller.js. I'm going to paste in here that content. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my index page. I'm going to have to load that controller, and we have website controller. There it is. Okay. Right, so that allows us to start splitting up our application into modules, right? Another name for, instead of features, it could be like modules, right? And each type of thing that your application does would be in its own module. So let's refresh, see if we broke something. It looks like it's still working. All right, so it's adding, right? And I can remove. So it looks like it's working. Let me make sure that the source code is correct. Yeah, see, it's loading. The services is separate and the controllers are separate. Yes? Everybody good? All right. All right, so let's get a little more interesting. Let's say websites. What are websites made out of? Websites are made out of pages, right? Each website has many pages, correct? So in a relational database, the way you would model that is that you would have two separate tables, right? Where you have websites and pages. Pages has a foreign key back to the website telling me, what pages belong to which website. Yes, right. Over here, we're going to use a different way of modeling that. Okay, the way we're going to model it is that websites. Let's go to the model. Where's the model in the server? Right, in the server. Notice that we were defining the schema for the website, yes? Well, what I want to do is have a nested schema. I'm going to say that here you have page schema. And here's a new one, Mongoose. That schema, a brand new schema. And the page might have, again, a name, a string, and maybe has a URL. And then maybe has a created also. When was the page created? So I'm going to copy that from here. And I don't want the plural version of pages. So I'm going to override that and say I want to use the collection page. Everybody good? Right? And so typically the way you would do this in relational databases is the page, because it's a child of the website, the page would have a foreign key back to the site. Yes? But in object orientation, it's backwards. Right? In relational databases, it is the children who are aware of their parents, because you have a foreign key from the child to the parent. In object-oriented world, it's backwards, right? It is the parent who is aware of its children, right? The way you model this in object-oriented way is that you have perhaps the website having an array of pages, right? Or a list of pages, right? It is the parent website that is aware of the children pages, right? So coming from an object-oriented world, that's more natural, right? That's a much more natural way of modeling your data, right? Which doesn't map directly how you would model it in a relational database, right? So Mongoose and MongoDB allow you to model the natural way, the way you think about these things, right? Using the parent, right? If a site has what? It has pages, yes? It has an array of pages. See that? So the schema of a website is made up of many pages. You see that? Right. So this is a much more natural way of modeling, right? From an object-oriented point of view, right? What else? Okay. Right. So so now that we have a schema for the page, we should be able to do what? Well, this we can remove this, right? Because we're not going to create using get. We can retrieve the site. Let's see. We can retrieve the site. We can retrieve. So this is a find one, right? So this is find by ID. This is find all, right? Find all. This is what? This is remove. Let's remove. This is create, right? Create a website. We should be able to not only be able to ask for a particular website, we would like to be able to ask for all the pages in that website, right? If you have a website and you want to know all the pages in that website, you should be able to ask for it, right? So how would you ask for websites, for the pages in a website? The way you would do it is that you would have to first tell me which website you're talking about, right? Once I know the website, I can then tell you, oh, these are the pages for that particular website, right? So here's how you would retrieve the particular website, right? To retrieve the pages in that website, we could have something like this. We could have find pages for a website. Right? You would say the API, the website, I tell you which website, and then I say page. If I don't tell which page, it means I want all the pages, right, in that website. You see the hierarchical nature of this URL, right? You start from high level, parents, right, and you start drilling down into its children's, right? So for instance, from a website, you can see all the pages. Pages might have lots of widgets, right? So you can imagine that this could be, right, could be nested even further, right? So now that I have the site, now that I have retrieved the site, I don't want to return the site. I want to retrieve what? The pages in that site. Where does a page come from? Pages now is an attribute of the site, isn't it? Isn't that what we added in the schema? It is. Look, pages. Pages is now an attribute of a website. You see that? So we can do that, right? And what is it? It's an array, right? An array. So this URL asks for all the pages. If I don't tell you specifically what page, this is going to retrieve all the pages, right? All the pages in there, right? Okay, everybody okay? All right. So let's see what this does. Right. So let's restart the server. Let's restart the server. So let's try the URL that we had earlier. Right. So let's do this locally. So the sites I created, really? So website 1. Let me create that. Okay. So remember that we have a URL for retrieving the website, right? And by ID, right? I don't know the ID for this one. Actually, maybe I can. Do I know the ID? Actually, we can, right? If I do slash API, right? API website, that retrieves all the sites, right? Okay, notice, look at that. Notice that all websites now have this additional attribute, this additional property of pages, which is an array. It's an empty array. See that? It's an empty array, right? Because none of these websites have ever added any pages. So I can ask for a particular site by giving the ID, right? Right. So it returns that one website, and then I have a brand new URL that I can ask for the page, for the pages, right? And if I do that, it's going to return just an empty array because it has no pages inside, right? So let's see how we could put pages in here. Right, let's add some pages in here. I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to leave it here because I'll get into something that I can't complete. Let's leave it here. All right. Any questions before we break? All right. So next week is a break. Yes.
Could you give us pictures for the
Yes, I'll push all the everything that we've been doing for the last week or so into GitHub, so you can play around with it. Right. I'll also make the new assignments available, which will be starting to play with Angular, starting to play with Node.js and MongoDB. So those are the next 3 assignments that are coming up in that order, and that should get you up and running so you can start working on your projects. All right. So the last 4 weeks, I think we'll be focused on on working on your projects. All right. All right. Thank you, and have a great break. All right.